don't blame you, you came here for Nate. All right, I came here for Nate too. I did the last session in this room and I was just sticking around. So some of this might be redundant to what we just talked about an hour ago. Some of it might be new to you if you weren't here last hour. So I dropped a link to this in the chat if you want the slides. I teach at Point Loma High School in San Diego. There's Google Earth zooming in on that. It helps if I spotlight myself. Let's do that. Oh, can somebody make me host or at least spotlight my video?
I will do that. All right, your co-host now, Jen.
Awesome. That way I can do this and people can see me. What you are probably wondering is how I am making myself appear on my screen with my slides over my shoulder. So if you don't know about it, the app is totally awesome. It's currently still in beta for Windows and it's fully available on Macs if they're newer Macs. And if you're a teacher, they will give you a 1-year license for free. So you just have to email them and say you're a teacher. It's super good. I think this one's a little bit better. If you can't see my slides or things look blurry, let me know. I can change to a different method of screen sharing. The blog is litintech.com. If I have a good idea, I put it there. I haven't had a good idea in a long time though, so there's not, I think my last post was a while. Last post there is actually about a spreadsheet for pre-creating breakout rooms in Zoom that are homogeneous or heterogeneous based on what you want. So these are some of the things I talked about in this session. I will stop the moment Nate gets here and you can just look at the slides for the rest. So, there's some stuff in here about Zoom. That's right, I added to it. I have a cart of laptops in my classroom usually. I don't think I'll ever have a cart again. I think my district has switched to kids taking their devices with them all the time. But if you are still working with the cart method, get yourself some colored electrical tape. I don't know why I waited 10 years to do this. It took me 15 minutes to put the tape on. And I never get to the end of a row of laptops and be like, oh, there's one plug left, right? So get yourself some electrical tape. It's one of my tips. All right, are you ready? Here we go. This is a fast session. Use an LMS, blog, or Google Classroom. You probably have already figured this out by now. I'm gonna skip through some of this stuff. If you're here, you're already using stuff. Oh wait, that was my book. I wrote a book, y'all. Power Up, Making the Shift to One-to-One Teaching and Learning, Diana Navy, Jen Roberts, forward by Jamie Cassett, formerly the Google Education Evangelist. So this is pedagogy for one-to-one classrooms, what we learned in 10 years of teaching with one-to-one and how to best teach kids with that. So if you want that. All right. Use a panoramic photo of your classroom as your header in Google Classroom. If you haven't tried this yet, it's really fun. Wait till someday when your kids are all actually working and actually in the classroom. Take that panoramic photo with your phone. They won't even notice you're doing it because they'll be so busy working. And then upload it to Google Classroom. The nice thing about a panoramic photo is it's already all stretched out, just like the aspect ratio of the header of Google Classroom. I run mine through, let's see if this, yep, it's on the next slide. I run mine through an app called Tangled FX, which kind of anonymizes my students, makes it harder to tell who they are. The other one I like is Prisma. Prisma also kind of puts that stylized effect on kids' faces. This allows me to share what's going on in my classroom and even on social media and not feel guilty that I'm revealing kids' privacy issues because no one can tell who that kid is and no facial recognition software is ever going to track them down. And they just think it's cool. They're like, oh, that's such a cool looking picture. Can I have a copy of it? I'm like, I'll just tweet it out. You can go grab it. So Tangled FX is a few dollars. I think Prisma is free. I'm not sure. So none of this is more than the cost of a cup of coffee. All right, a good cup of coffee. I used to say if you can shop online, you can figure out Google Classroom. It's getting a little more complicated now. And rich text formatting is coming. If you have Google Classroom, they just announced this week you're going to be able to use rich text formatting. Normally, I run my classroom out of a blog, left and right hand side. I've had to change that this year because I've had to go exclusively to Canvas, and I didn't think I could run a blog and Canvas. But the left side of the blog is dynamic. It changes every day. It's auto archive. The right side is static. There is no other LMS I have found that does this, that lets me change one part of it every day and keeps the other part of it the same every day. Everything else is just a stream, like the Google Classroom stream drives me crazy. But the blog is great and it's auto archived. Every blog post I've ever written is on there. And it's searchable. You can't see it in this screenshot. There's a search box up there. If I want to know how I taught something before, I can search it up. All right, so that's that. I can schedule posts in advance. You can schedule assignments in advance in Google Classroom. With the blog, I could schedule entire posts in advance, like even I took a screenshot of this because I was super proud of myself that week because I had actually scheduled all my posts in advance, which I don't usually manage to do. So it was a moment. And then I borrow from year to year. So this one is 2018, this one 2017. It's the same darn lesson, but I copied and pasted over and then changed a little bit. So it's like, it's always iterating on itself, but I always have sort of a base to go for. This year I'm gonna have to change that because we've completely changed our curriculum. So the district requires ethnic studies now as a graduation requirement. So 9th grade English is now ethnic studies. So we've had to change. All right. Now I live in Canvas. If you, there might be.
All right. Okay, everybody.
We got Nate.
He's on his way in. He had a huge internet crash and everything had to restart. And so he should be here. He is. He is now connecting. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll talk to you in the session. Okay.
You're welcome. Anytime. I will be your backup presenter anytime, you guys. Just call me.
Thank you so much, Jen. Always amazing. You're welcome, Lisa.
Nate, you are now co-host, as you have just restarted every device in your house probably. So we'll let you get situated. And again, thank you, Jen, for just stepping in and just being a good teacher and just picking everything up on the fly there. So.
No, thank you again, Jen. I really, really appreciate it. Literally everything in my house crashed. I have a smart wired home, which is really cool and really great up until the moment where everything crashes. And that's what just happened. So that was cool. In the meantime. Okay, I am good to go. I finally got my Google Slides up and I am ready. So thanks, Ryan.
No problem. Take your time.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm like 5 seconds away from being ready to go. I will say today, for the people who are in here and you come to my session, I promise it will not, I hope it will not be as much as a disaster as it started here, although I'm sure we've all dealt with this with online teaching. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. And there's going to be a link that you will see there. And on that, please let me know if you guys can see that. You could just give me a big thumbs up or something. Awesome. So with that, you'll see a bit.ly down there. It's bit.ly/QLA Ridgway. And Ridgway does not have an E in it. And for that, my ancestors apologize. So once you get into the bit.ly, here's what I'd like you to do in our chat here on Zoom. This is one of my favorite activities to do with students. Is I would like you to come up with your own recipe for differentiation. So for example, add 2 cups of intentional planning. You can, I'm sure, come up with your own recipe for what do you define as being differentiation in the classroom? Buddy, hey bud, I need you to back up, buddy. No, listen. You have to get out of position, okay? No, buddy. No. I'm on. Add 8 cups of scaffolding. There we go. I know, right? That was my toddler, who is, of course, naked, saying hi. He actually had a really tough day today. He got a flu shot. So Add 10 pounds of knowing your students. Yeah, so come up with your own recipe. Tell us how long you're gonna bake your recipe for, or are you gonna whip it up into shape? Yeah, I remember that BBC announcer. It's funny how that just kind of became the norm, right? Find hot, ooh, I like that one from Scott. Find hot and cooler spots on the barbecue. I like it. I look what Kamari said, add a few cups of laughter. I always love it, using humor in my classroom. My students probably hate it, but all right, for anybody else who needs to get the recipe posted, go ahead. Ryan, I wanted to check with you real fast because I know that I was resetting things and I lost track of time. I wanted to make sure that I have at least an awareness of how much time I have, because this session is going to be differentiated, as it kind of suggests here. So I just wanted to check in with you about how much time I can get away with here.
So the session's supposed to end at 3. Let me go ahead and message some of my colleagues here and just see what we can do. But why don't you just get going, and then I will private message you in the chat about what we decided.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so with that, I've also, again, if you don't have the link to the slides, everybody, I posted them here for you, and they are yours forever. You have a link to them for the end of time. With that, I'm gonna get going on because we don't have a huge amount of time. So with that, let me get to who I am and kind of what this session's all about. So my name is Nate Ridgway. I am a teacher in Indiana. Actually, I'm not out there with you guys in California, although right now with temperatures, being pretty consistently here in the zeros and the teens, I definitely wish I were. Basically, my job that I currently do is I'm a history teacher. And I kind of, in my spare time, I kind of sit back and I think and write about kind of my background as being both a special education teacher and then also somebody who really enjoys tech. And so with that, that kind of brought me to a few years ago, writing a book that you can see there. It's called Don't Ditch That Tech, Differentiating in a Digital World. And if you've heard of the Ditch That Textbook series by Matt Miller, you might have heard of that one before. That's where this one comes from. It's the 3rd book in that series. I also have done some writing for OnQ, but other than that, I'm pretty much just a passionate nerd about a lot of things. And down below, these slides are interactive. Thank you so much, Melissa. Down below, these slides are interactive, so you can click on all these different elements and it will take you all these different things if you'd like to check out some of the work that I and also my co-author, who's my mom, funny enough, she's in a doctorate of education, that we do together and all that good jazz. So enough about me though. We today are going to take kind of a very quick definition and crash course into differentiation. And with that, we are also going to make this session customizable to you. So I really, because we'll talk about this somewhat later, if differentiation is what we want to do as teachers, I want to be practicing what I preach. So when we get to the end of the lesson, or towards the middle of it, we are going to really customize everything from there on out. You guys will get to decide what we do from then on. So with that, we'll give just a very, very quick hit list of differentiation to get us all on the same page, and then we'll take it from there. All right, so with that, first I want to talk about UDL, and also kind of a working definition for differentiation. Okay, so with that, UDL, if you're not familiar with it, if you are familiar with it, could you type in the chat that you've heard of UDL before? I'd love to hear those who have heard of it before. Then I'll talk about this scary picture. Awesome. Yes, UDL is amazing. Very good, 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 good. So if you're familiar with that, let me tell you about mannequins, which seems like it has nothing to do with anything. I think for a lot of people, they hear words like differentiation and UDL and they get really, really scared. And for me, mannequins are really scary. I can't do Disney World, not because of COVID, but just because like I can't deal with things that pretend to be human. They're terrifying to me. So I think like a lot of us hear the words differentiation, and especially right now in a pandemic, and it seems just very stressful and just very, for me, it's a lot to try to handle. So with that, right here, if you're not familiar with UDL, I provided a link to kind of what are the Universal Design for Learning guidelines. It seems like a lot of you guys are very familiar with those, so I won't spend too much time on this. But multiple means of representation, giving students lots of options with action and expression. Yes, the terrifying Old Navy family, and multiple means of engagement. And with that then, if we take UDL, I want to first acknowledge that with differentiation, that is not the same thing as what is happening in SPED. As a former SPED teacher myself, I just want to make sure that I hammer down that when we get down in the funnel of making modifications for students, SPED is entirely different. So this funnel here is again something that an infographic that I love using when I'm explaining how special education is not exactly the same thing as differentiation with people, but we're really going to be focusing more on the top like 4/5 of this funnel, if that kind of makes sense. So with that, what is differentiation? Your guys' recipes were all different, and that's totally fine and to be expected. It can be a ton of different things. It could be how we respond to learners. It could be how we look at students' varying background knowledge or their preferences, or it could be their particular sets of modalities that they might prefer. And with that, again, it can, differentiation can vary highly based upon our students' contexts and backgrounds. And with that, then I will introduce the ultimate, person in differentiation. That's Carol Ann Tomlinson. And Tomlinson, she kind of defines differentiation as this, and it's kind of the one that we use in our book as well when we're talking about differentiation with technology. And we said it's modifying, consistently using a variety of instructional approaches to modify content, process, products, and response to learners' readiness and interests. And if we take just that model of what she says here, it's being very, very intentional. And again, the reason why we do this is, of course, something that we know as all educators is because students aren't all the same. And with that, then we got to where we felt like we needed to write our book. And so my goal in this session then is to help you feel like you're not the runner in the back here anymore, who is clearly not enjoying a good time compared to the Usain Bolts of the world, who seem to be sometimes just running away with tech. And so for us teachers who are trying to keep up with the tech, as well as meeting our students' needs in the classroom, whether that's English language learners or students with IEPs or different things of that nature, we constantly feel kind of this drive to keep up. And so today we're going to try to kind of hit some different areas that we can talk about. Now, I am, because of time here, going to make a decision, and that is I'm going to skip a little bit of the presentation that I otherwise would have talked to you guys about. And that is really the part of the book that I would have loved to do with you, and it's a survey. So here later, if you would like to, again, because you have this presentation forever, if you would like to learn about the answer, because we have all these different models of differentiation, right? And I showed some of them back here. So we have, Gardner's multiple intelligences. We have SAMR. We have, DOK. We have Bloom's in some cases that people like. We in the book wanted to come up with a model for how teachers could differentiate in the classroom, and with specifically technology. And with that, then there is a survey right here you can take, and it then gives you some points that you can score yourself on with this scale here. With that, then, okay, and you can kind of see we came up with our own kind of model for tech and differentiation. If you then go on to slide 14, it talks to you about what some of these archetypes are of how people tend to differentiate with technology in the classroom. And I'll just give you a really quick overview. And again, you're more than welcome, when we go back a little bit, or we have time later, you can more than happy to take that survey. So first we have the pilot, and that's where the teacher is the primary driver of the technology. That's kind of like what I'm doing here, right? I'm the one driving the ship. I have control of things, and in this case, the passengers don't have any input on where things are going or what's happening. You can't stand up and say, I'd like to go to Maui instead. It doesn't happen. And then we get a museum exhibitor. If we could go to museums right now, a lot of museums have very interactive exhibits. And this is like the Kahoot of the world. These apps tend to be, where it's interactive still, like, people get the ability to play with whatever technology. Again, the students get to play with whatever technology might be using in the classroom, but then you're still the one deciding what you're curating in the exhibits, right? You're deciding, what's on display, what's prioritized, those kind of thing. And then we get the restaurant owner. The restaurant owner is now, I'm going to give students a menu of options to choose from, whether that's, and specifically here, we decided to focus on process first. Like, you can have a meal whatever way you want to, but what way you want to eat that meal, it is up to you. You can start with appetizers or, perhaps an entree. Then stuff becomes much more student-centered as we go down. And that's kind of what our scale here is trying to show, is that the more you differentiate, the more your instruction becomes student-centered. Where we get to the council member, where students are starting to decide on content that they find personally interesting. And then eventually the creative art coach, where we start to focus on things like student-driven content and metacognition. And what that survey does back a few slides ago is it gives you a number score that you can kind of place yourself on this continuum. Now, again, differentiation is not it's not a destination, it's more of a journey. And you may find yourself all over kind of this spectrum of differentiation. And some lessons, maybe you're a pilot, and other ones, maybe you're a creative art coach. And that's how it, kind of goes. And that's perfectly fine. So with that, then I'm going to finally, here in the last 15 minutes or so, and this is what I wanted to get to with our time, because I'd like this to be interactive and you have a chance to go play with some tools that you can use to differentiate. You guys get to choose. So we have 4 options here. We can look at apps that help activate students' attention and background knowledge. We can look at apps that help students apply the real world to learning. We can look at other apps that help create varied, personalized content experiences, or we can look at some apps that help students develop metacognition. And again, we're focusing on ed tech and differentiation with that lens in mind. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pick one of these 4, okay? And you can see them right here. I'm on slide number 16 if you're following along. And I'd like you to type one of these in the chat that you would like me to personally address during our time. So we have activate attention, we have apply the real world, we have personalized content, and we have promote metacognition. And I'll kind of pay attention to the trends where they're going. Oh, Dev, I'll copy the presentation for you. Just 1 second. So it looks like I'm seeing a lot for activate attention. There you go, Dev. That's in there for you now. All right, yeah, I'm seeing a lot for activate attention. Let's see, everyone. There we go. There's the link. All right, so we'll go ahead and spend our time, since the people who voted have kind of voiced that opinion. We'll go ahead and spend our time on that. And if you are on slide number 16, I'm going to go ahead and get my screen share back up after having grabbed that. There we go. You can go ahead and click right on the lightning bulb here. Okay, the light bulb for activate attention. It will take you right to it. So here's the thing that I will tell you about activating attention and also our other areas. If you feel personally, you're like, I was offended that I did not get the area that I wanted to go and look at, don't worry. At any time you have this presentation forever, you can go and check out any of these areas in depth. This resource is there for you forever. There's a home button down here in the bottom left-hand corner. You just click on it, and then it takes you right back to our guide slide here. Again, please feel free to go back any other time to go check these things out. So let's talk about activating attention and some apps you can do that through. First, attention and learning are so integral that they simply can't be separated from each other. And this is true with EdTech or just in person. Here in Indiana, I've been 100% in person nearly the entire year now. And this is something that I found to be true with my high school students, whether I have them in class or whether they've been quarantined at home. And the thing I would say about this is for students, when they leave your classroom, was your lesson worth remembering? Was it so interesting that they couldn't forget it? And that really for me is kind of like the golden marker for thinking about, have I really got my students' attention during that time? So how can I keep them engaged? And so by the way, for those unfamiliar with the information processing model of Atkinson and Schifrin, I've given you this here. I try to do all of my writing and research and in good actual good theory. So we're really kind of focusing here on how can I really take this model and integrate it usefully in the classroom where I can get them to keep something in their working memory for long enough, or that they can eventually take it and then process it and it becomes something meaningful to them. So if you go on then, and for those who've been jumping around on the larger slide view, we're on slide 19 now. I've provided 3 examples of trends that you can use in a way to grab your students' attention, whether you're remote or in person or something in between. And you'll notice here that we're not going to really talk about apps so much because first of all, apps shouldn't drive your teaching anyways. They're just tools for you to get to a certain point. So I'm going to first talk about the first one here, personalization. So finding a place or topic that holds personal meaning for students. Local history, for me, you can do anything local, is really, really powerful. And so the app that I do this with in one lesson is Google Slides. And so you can click on this example, and I'll go ahead and pull it up here for you and make sure that you can see it. There we go. Okay. So this right here, this is a lesson that I do with students on personalized local history. And we're talking about Indiana, and I'm introducing the idea of social Darwinism to them. And social Darwinism is this old theory, still has echoes of it around today. The idea that some humans are more naturally equipped to succeed than others. And some people in Indiana took this to a very, very far extreme, where they began a comprehensive eugenics program. And that creepy doctor dude up there in the top right corner, that was the guy in Indiana who was behind this. And Indiana actually became, even though I am a proud Hoosier in some ways, Indiana was the first state here to have a comprehensive eugenics law on the books. And it was only repealed in the 1970s. So Indiana was kind of into the whole eugenics thing for a really long time. And my students are blown away by this, that there were forced sterilizations of people happening. And so they're like, wow, this is actually like applicable to me in my local area. And this isn't something I even like start the block, my classes with. It's something that I may, toss in the middle of. And so again, even though it may not seem like this is a crazy useful app. It's more about like, oh, I'm just using Google Slides here as a mechanism to distribute this information here on Dr. Sharp and what he was up to. So that's just one strategy. Let's talk about pop culture. Twitter is a really unused tool that I would like you to think about using. Now, for a lot of people, Twitter is very scary because it's everything about the internet, both good and bad. But there's something on Twitter you can do called Twitter Moments, and that's what I'd like to show you here. You can make these on your own, and I have a guide on my blog on how to make them. But Twitter Moments, if I go here to Profile, and then actually, I'm sorry, excuse me, More, and then Moments. Okay, you'll see these moments right here. And this is actually one for my students that I just recently made. And what moments allows you to do, make sure that I'm sharing my screen here just to double check. Yes, okay, you guys can't see this. Is Twitter Moments let you take individual tweets or accounts, or you can get very, very selective with it, and you can take them and you can pull snippets into a comprehensive story. And so my students were learning very recently about African colonialism, and they were looking at King Leopold II in the Congo. And then what I had them do is I had them look at that and compare that to how the Black Lives Matter movement has been interacting with the ideas of Leopold in Belgium. And so I then took tweets from people and I showed them history that had happened just in 2020 with King Leopold and how that was interacting with history that they were learning about in class. And so you can do this with anything. You can go and make your own moments. There's also moments that Twitter makes themselves. So you don't have to go and make them all. Again, so Twitter doesn't have to be scary. And there's even ways, by the way, if you're like your district blocks Twitter, which again is totally understandable, that you can go and save this and like save it as a PDF, just the whole screen, like, go to print, save as, and you can just print it out and then share it with your students that way as a PDF file. And so, yes, the moments are like curated tweets. That's exactly what they're like. And there's moments that have been made on things that are very recent as well as old. Yes, it's kind of like Wakelet in a way. The thing that I like about doing this on Twitter as opposed to Wakelet is I don't have to go through a third party to do it. But you could totally do this through Wakelet as well. Yep, Wakelet would be another good way to do it. That's an excellent point. The last one I want to leave you with is something for the ELED teachers out there. And that is Wonderopolis. Wonderopolis is fantastic. If you have not seen Wonderopolis yet, or even if you're a middle school teacher, this could be something that I would highly encourage you to check out, is to, with EdTech, again, because that's this website, try to intentionally baffle your students and be like, okay, guys, today we're going to try to figure out how you turn peanut butter into a diamond. And they'll be like, what? Sorry, what? Like, you can actually do that? And of course, you'll probably get some kid who will go home and try to actually attempt it, which I don't recommend. But what Wonderopolis does is it takes questions that students submit to them. Okay, they curate them, they write them up, and they turn them into, not Wikipedia. And then I search there. Oh, look at that. Can you turn peanut butter into a diamond? And what's wonderful about this is that it's multimedia. So they've got pictures, video, things like that. They've got a built-in definition for students when they hit on, a vocabulary that might be challenging them. And then for those who are familiar with Immersive Reader, right here, Immersive Reader is built into Wonderopolis. It's wonderful. Your students can even, come up with their own wonders that you could do as a class that you might submit to Wonderopolis, which could be a really cool design project. So here, again, captivating that sense of mystery and the unknown to try to grab your students and pull them in. It's really, really powerful. So again, and there's built-in quizzes and tests in here that they give out. Wonderopolis is great. So with that, I know that I did not absolutely get to everything in this presentation. And again, I apologize for that, although it was outside my locus of control. I have also left other apps below that do similar things that the ones that I showed you above. In some ways, they're about the same trends, right? Personalization, pop culture, mystery. But then, of course, there's always these other areas that we didn't get the chance to talk about, like metacognition and activating attention and personalizing content. So if you'd like to check these out, they're all here. You can check them out to your heart's content. Also, I will let you know. I may do this for the keynote later because I'm doing that here in just a few minutes. But if you give us a follow here on Twitter, that's our Twitter right there. It's @TeachFromRidge. We will be raffling off a book. It's that one up there. There we go. I go get. Yes, it's mirrored. It's that one right there. So that's our book that my mom and Matt Miller and I wrote, and we'll be shipping one of those out to somebody who follows us on Twitter. And of course, we'd always love to hear your feedback once we read it. It's not just writing is not a one-way street. So with that, I will leave it there, and I think I tried to crush through that as fast as possible. So.
Hey, so Nate, I just really want to jump in here. We do have a few minutes, and
Yes.
So I know you felt like whew, you had to get through that in like 20 seconds.
Yes.
But we do have a few minutes, and I know some people may have some questions too.
Yes, please.
But additionally, I think every single person in the room can really relate to what happened because we've all been there, and it's happened to every one of us, right?
Yes.
So it's okay. Give yourself a little breath, a little grace. It's all going to be fine.
Hopefully not a naked toddler like running into your background, but
hey, there's dogs, there's blender.
It's not a complete session until that happens, right?
Exactly. So yeah, there's all kinds of good stuff that happens. You just never know. So we'll open it up at this point, and if people have questions, you can either throw questions in the chat. Yes, we do have naked toddlers too. I think we've all had them running around the house. So no, tech never has hiccups. That never.
No,
happens.
no, never.
Yeah, never. So if anybody has some questions for Nate, we can take a few minutes.
Do I recommend Twitter for third graders? Making their own? Absolutely not. No, I don't. That being said, there are things that I think you can pull from, like there's ideas you can pull from Twitter that are usable. And so let me explain that. For example, like hashtags. Students get to know hashtags at a really, really young level. I'm not saying third grade is the way to necessarily do that. But Twitter practices skills around summarizing, right? Extensively, especially if you cut it back to, yes, and Matt Melissa had templates for this. Thank you for pointing that out, Brenda. That you can take the skills of summarizing there and really pull them and integrate them in. Any tips for getting teachers to focus more on methods and less on tech tools? Yes.
And I'd like to say maybe more on pedagogical practice than tech.
Yes.
Tools.
Yes. Pedagogy is everything. Literally, if I could underscore that to the nth degree, pedagogy matters infinitely more than the technology that you're using. Not to say that the technology can, of course, grab your students' interests and be, a link to worlds that they're otherwise wouldn't be exposed to. It's just, it doesn't, if you can ask a person and sit down and say, so show me the research that says this method works. And if they can't tell you, they can't give you the name of any kind of practical, applicable reason, yes, the outcome, as Brenda's saying there, then you probably have no business using it. Here's what I would also recommend. First, I would tell teachers, it's not about the number of apps you have, it's about the amount of meaningful learning that's going to happen. So just start with less apps. And in the book, we talk about this all the time, like start small. If you're like just getting into ed tech, like try to learn one app at a time. Same thing for your students. If you try to do a Flipgrid inside of a Pear Deck, inside of a Nearpod, and you're like, oh yeah, we're going to flip that into a Google Slides, and then, oh yeah, also we're going to take that and do a Wii video about it. Like, you're going to have a panic attack, and your students are too, because not only they're not going to be learning the content that you're teaching, they can't even learn the skills in the first place. So start small is my recommendation.
Mm-hmm. Always great advice. Yeah, the hardest thing is that, teachers will come to a session like this where they see 40 new things and you want to go back and try all the 40 new things. But, find the one, it's like Curly, right? What's the one thing that's really going to transform what you do when you go back on Monday?
Yeah, and also praxis too. If you're not familiar with the concept of praxis, Paulo Freire talks about it a lot in Pedagogy. I think it's Pedagogy of the Oppressed, but he talks about it in other places too, where the idea of, okay, I try something and then I reflect upon it and see how it went. Reflection is immensely important with teaching generally, but especially using ed tech in the classroom, because it affects everything you do.
And then maybe even teaching your kids to reflect as well.
Yeah.
Because that whole reflection is part of the learning process, right?
Yeah. Because also then you get into conversations too about like, okay, I tried this ed tech app in my class, but first of all, was it equitable for my students? Because you have to think about things like that too. So again, every single time you add something to the recipe of your classroom, you don't know what effect that's going to have.
So Nate, we have about, I know you might want to take a minute to get in the next room and to get your content prepared. So thank you so much for joining us. And if you didn't see, Lisa popped the link to the next, to the keynote session in the chat. So you can just click that link and go into the next session, everybody. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you at the closing keynote.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you there.